Good morning, and thank you guys for coming back to my channel. So today we don't have a makeup or hair tutorial. It's actually going to be a little cooking mini Thanksgiving tutorial. So as you can see, I have all of our ingredients set out. Some vanilla wafers, some chessmen cookies, our pan, condensed milk, sweetened condensed milk. I'm just going through and cleaning off the stove a little bit. Even though everything was clean, I just like to start off fresh. So I'm gonna jump right in. As you guys can see, I have a couple of different brands of the Jello brand, but it's actually pudding. And some of them are cooked to serve and some are instant. So here are the vanilla flavor, and that's the cheesecake, which is the instant ones. So I'm just gonna jump right in. I'm just moving some stuff over so I can have a little bit more room. I did want to have everything in the camera view so you guys could see. So I just turned on my heat to medium, and I put in some whole milk, and that's just a whisk and a spoon. And I'm just gonna keep an eye on that milk. I'm gonna keep it low, but I wanted to bring it to a simmer and then to a gradual boil. I don't want the milk to curdle, which means it's gotten too hot too fast and it'll thicken up. I want it to stay thin, so I'm gonna gradually bring that heat up. And here I'm just cutting off these organic bananas and opening them up. I usually don't use organic bananas, but obviously it was last minute. So all the bananas were gone, all the ripe bananas anyway. So I didn't have a choice but to get the organic ones, but it's okay. It'll be just as good. So I'm just going to go through and start cutting the bananas. I wanted this banana pudding specifically to be very minimal on the bananas. I'm not a huge fan of bananas inside of banana pudding. I'm more of a fan of the cookies inside of the banana pudding. So I'm just going to go through and thinly slice these bananas just so I can have them to the side to be able to pick up and put throughout the layers, or pick up and put in some of the fillings that we're going to be making. So there the bananas are all freshly cut. So for my fillings, I don't just like to have pudding and whipped cream and stuff like that. I like to actually put the cookies within the filling. So once everything is put together, there's still a lot of cookies within the filling. So I'm just going to dump out an entire bag of the vanilla wafers and put them in a Ziploc bag. And then I'm going to use a can of condensed milk to roll almost as a rolling pin on top of the Ziploc bag so I can crush up the cookies. So we're just going to jump into the pudding. These are the instant puddings. This first one is the vanilla flavor. So already in the bowl, there's around 2 cups of cold milk. As you can see, I never use any measuring cups. My grandma just taught me to cook from my heart and taste as you go, being clean as well. Never double dipping into the same spoon or anything like that you taste off of, but just go with it. Measuring cups are never my thing. So I put in the last pack of vanilla. And now we're just going to go through with a fork and actually mix it. I chose not to use the whisk because I didn't want it to be thick and mixed. I want it to be as thin as possible. And when you have a cold liquid, sometimes it's hard to get things super thin if you're not using a mixer. So I prefer to use a fork because I feel like I can get everything thoroughly through. So I'm just going in and mixing the instant pudding. And yes, I do have instant as well as the cook to serve pudding for a specific reason. So when we get to the cooking one, which is partly the milk that's on the stove, I'll go over an explanation of why I use 2 different types of pudding. So the cream cheese was left out for about 3 hours, so it's softened up. So I put that in a bowl. And then I'm just gonna, as I'm looking over and keeping an eye on my milk, I see that now we're beginning to boil. So now I'm putting in the cook to serve, which is vanilla flavor. And excuse me, the instant was actually cheesecake flavor. They ran out of a lot of vanilla and they had French vanilla, and I kind of wanted to try something new. So I did go with the cheesecake instant pudding. And the one that we're mixing together on the stove inside of the boiling milk is the cook to serve vanilla flavor. So I'm just making sure that I'm mixing that through. As you can see, I'm checking the consistency. So if you do happen to say burn a little bit of the milk, or there's you can feel that there's a layer of pudding on the surface of the pot, do not scrape the pot. just continue to mix the oil, the liquid that's already liquefied. Don't try to scrape up anything, because if that is a little bit burnt, you don't want to throw off your taste. You want to keep the same authentic vanilla taste, and you don't want any little burnt chips in there. So never scrape the bottom of any pan, no matter what you're making, unless it's a roux and you're making gumbo, but that's for another tutorial. So I'm just gonna go in and put the instant mixture. As you can see, it's gotten really thick. Usually this will thicken as it's cold or chilled, but it's really, really cold in my house. I always keep the AC on. I'm more comfortable in the cold, so that's why you see it's thickening up already. So I already have three 8-ounce packages of Philadelphia cream cheese, but that was the Wegmans brand, inside of our bowl. And then we put our instant, which is vanilla flavor and cheesecake flavor pudding. And then we're just going to go through and mix that up. And now we're going to take our crushed up Ziploc bag of vanilla wafers, mini vanilla wafers, and we're going to begin to mix that through. Now, this is one of the parts where sometimes I wish I had a mixer, but it's like I do kind of like doing it by hand, just because I don't know, it's just a personal thing, and it's just how I was taught. So now we're just going in and we're putting in the condensed milk. And then I did put a little bit of the cooked to serve mixture in there, because I wanted some of that heat, and I did also want the cooked version inside. So I just put a little bit of that into this filling, because most of the heated cooked to serve filling we're going to put throughout the layers of the actual banana pudding. So now we're just going through and mixing together those vanilla wafers, a couple of bananas, some Philadelphia cream cheese, as well as some condensed milk. And for some dishes, it's okay to use Great Value things. Don't get me wrong. I don't use like Walmart or Wegmans brand of everything, because there's some things that you just should not use off generic brands of. But when it comes to things like cream cheese or condensed milk, those things are staples. So the taste isn't really going to change at all. So it's okay to use Great Value products or an off-brand generic product for those particular ingredients. So we're still mixing. My hand was hurting, so I had to take a little break. But I just want to show you guys. So after that is mostly mixed through, I'm just going to go and clean off the stove a little bit in our counter section and mix through that milk to be sure it's not getting too thick or it's not cooking too long. Clean as you go when you cook. Clean as you go. Don't wait all the way until the end. So I just added some heavy cream inside of our filling, as you can see, and a couple more bananas. And I really added the heavy cream to thin it out a little bit, but to keep the thickness. I didn't want to add a thin milk. And now I'm going to actually add some sour cream. Yes, I know some people are really weirded out about this, but it's a really good base. I learned this in high school when I was in home ec class, and it really does give a different type of creaminess and consistency that you cannot get from heavy cream or any type of whipped cream or Cool Whip. So now I'm just going through. I went through and I added a layer of chessmen cookies to the bottom of the pan. And now I'm actually going through and putting on the hot cooked version of the pudding, which is vanilla flavored. And I'm just going to spread it out over the cookie. So right now it just seems like it's filling on top of cookies. But eventually, when it's chilling in the refrigerator and everything's on top of each other and comes together, it'll really give a very nice consistency that's not too thin, that's not too pudding-y, if that makes sense. And it'll be a nice, thick mixture when everything is combined and all the layers are combined. So now that we have our layer of cooked to serve pudding and cookies, now we're going to go in with that filling that we made. So this is the filling with the cream cheese, the condensed milk, the French vanilla wafers. So we're just going to evenly spread that out so we have enough for our next layer. But you don't want to be stingy with it. Make sure you make your layers nice. So after I put in our filling, I'm going to go back in with another layer of chessmen cookies. So as I told you guys, I'm very minimal with the bananas when it comes to my banana pudding, and I'm very heavy-handed when it comes to the cookies. That's why I ended up buying too many cookies because all of the Wegmans were sold out of cookies, and I had to go through multiple stores. So I overbought some vanilla wafers thinking I wasn't going to have chessmen. So it worked out good. We'll figure out something to do with the other cookies. I'll probably drop them off to the mission or something. So I'm just going to go through and add a little bit more of our hot filling and a couple of bananas. And then we're going to seal it off again with our filling that we created. So I'm just going through and scraping up the rest of what was left inside of the bowl. And always be sure, like, throughout, while you're cooking and cleaning at the same time, you're washing your hands throughout as well. So for this part, as you can see, I did add a little bit of heavy cream to the cook and serve just because it was getting a little thick. As I said, it's cold in my house. So I finished off that layer. So now I'm just going to go through with the spatula and almost create a space in between the layers. So when I go through and add our last layer, I can almost tuck it over the sides and let it go, almost let it fill up the empty spaces. So that's what I'm doing now. I put in a mixture of Cool Whip as well as Q-Whip. If anybody comments and knows where that's from, tell me. But I'm just going to put some Q-Whip inside of our cook to serve pudding. And I'm going to mix that together and just, not even really mix it. You're really going to fold it in. And you really will see how it starts to change the consistency of the cook to serve vanilla pudding. So after I get that all mixed up, that's going to be our layer to seal off the layers. Technically, we'll have one more layer of cookies, but this is our last official actual layer of filling. So I'm just mixing that up, making sure it's not too chunky, especially because it's one of our last layers. So we want it to be nice and smooth. We want it to be like a flawless finish. So as you can see, I'm just mixing. Trying to get it to the right consistency, giving the counter a little bit of a clean really quick. I'm just super anal about that. That's how my grandma taught me. So now I'm just going through. As you can see, the consistency and the color has changed because we added in our Q-Whip. So I'm just going through with a spoon, spreading that out, spreading that on, making sure that I'm getting the filling inside of the little creases that I created with the spatula. The spaces aren't huge because the spatula is thin, and that's what I created them with. But I want to make sure that any little, crease or crevice is filled with filling. And whatever isn't filled with filling, it has cookies in it. That's what you want. A really nice, tight, packed, not too liquidy, formed banana pudding is the best way, I think, to make it. I understand if everybody doesn't like it this way, but I love it this way, and so does my family. So I'm just going to go through with a clean napkin and clean off any edges of the pan that or the glass baking sheet that looked like it might have a little bit of pudding on there or whatever the case may be. And now I'm just going to go in with our final layer of chessmen cookies. And chessmen cookies, they're very comparable to vanilla wafers, but they don't have such a huge vanilla taste. So I already have vanilla pudding, French vanilla pudding, and cheesecake pudding. So those all already have like a vanilla taste. So you don't want to pack too hard of a punch with that. So for the ingredients like the heavy cream and the sour cream, those are thick bases, but they're not they don't add additional sweetness. So they almost allow for the sweetness of the condensed milk and the artificial pudding flavors to not be so strong and to not be so sweet, and to give you more of a rich, savory taste than a super sweet taste that just tastes like I just got this pre-made banana pudding. And that's not what we want. We don't want it to taste like that. We want it to taste full of love, full of Thanksgiving, full of family. So ta-da! Banana Nana.